Welcome to our Star Trek Discovery after show, and here it is. We're at the end of season 4. We're about to talk about episode 13, and I am proof that even in the 32nd century, they still have St. Patrick's Day. Welcome. I am Christian Bladt, joined as usual, as almost always, by Nikki Bailey.
Hey, hey.
So there's a lot to get to. I have a lot of thoughts and some feelings about episode 13, but you haven't been able to share your thoughts the last couple weeks. So take a moment or two and talk about as we were heading towards this finale, the last two episodes. So you didn't really get to talk about episode 11 or 12, which was, a little bit of a deliberately paced uh it was not a
That
sprint
is
to the
such a
finish.
really nice way of saying that they were slow as fuck. They were just
Mhm. Yep.
really, really dry and slow, and I've blocked them out, to be honest with you. Like I've
But I did tell you before you had seen them that there was gonna be something you like about it. Reno. We got a lot
well,
of Reno.
that of course made me happy. And of course, anytime you get to see Reno do anything with licorice, I was like, what is happening with the
Yeah.
licorice?
It's like
But
enough already.
Yeah, but no, it was good to see Tig Notaro. I missed her. I love her. I didn't get enough of her snide funny.
It's true.
Um, there could have been more snide funny, but it wasn't a snide funny situation, I guess.
No.
But
No, and there was the appropriate amount because, telling Target's like, you're gonna kill everyone, right? She did have some of those moments. Jason Blair does not keep up with these shows right now. He still has to watch the finale. Gonna go do that in a few. And then, he just have some news. They've cast a Kirk for Strange New World season 2. Can we just let Pike have the show for a while? Yeah, I didn't think we needed Kirk on that show. I didn't think we ever needed to see Kirk on that show. In all honesty, there was no impression that Kirk ever served under Pike.
right,
So and unless maybe that's not what's happening, but I guess we'll have to see. But let's talk about this show. So yeah, I mean, look, they set up a great. I thought that episode 12 ended in a way of like, okay, so they've pushed all the chips in. We're now at a point where we're trying to see exactly how it's all going to come together. Now, when I spoke last on this show, Flobo was with us, and I said, like, I think Michael just needs to blow up Book's ship in the first 2 minutes, except I know that won't happen. And it did not. But
yeah.
that seemed like the only way out, you know? But they came up with good reasons why they couldn't. Number one, they were still trapped. And then once they were out, their weapons didn't work. I'm like, all right, all right. So
Well, that it
it's
took
not,
them so long to figure out that Book ship was attached to the
yeah,
Discovery in the first place. Like Zora knew something was off, but couldn't figure
yeah,
it out. It took them too
yeah.
long to figure out that Reno was missing.
Zora was like, Michael, I suspect I have a case of the Mondays. And then I was like, all right, yeah, just deal with it. So yeah, and then they find out at the last possible second that Book ship was there. And it's like, well, then why did you bother letting them find out?
Right,
Like just
right.
let them be surprised and show us how dumb everyone is. All these smart Alex that think they know so much, all these know-it-alls. Yeah, so I thought that putting them in that situation, and then the fact that like first contact with the 10C in episode 12, sort of figuring out, trying to make the point that math is cool. I didn't need that, but that's just me in my personal life. I thought it was a cool sort of a very different kind of first contact. And as I said to Flobo, it was reminiscent of Star Trek: The Motion Picture. When you encounter V'ger, it's not just like, oh, hey, I'm an alien, but I have 6 hands, or I'm half blue and half mauve, which that might be a season 5 storyline right there. The people of mauve, but I thought it was cool that they had encountered something different. And I think for all of our criticism for the deliberate pacing of this season and just times where I was just like, oh, just get to it already. I think that the reveal being something that was so different, and it wasn't exciting. It wasn't like, oh my god, it's the Borg in the future, something like that. It was just like, oh, this is different. And then that's sort of, I was able to appreciate it because that is what I like about Star Trek, where sometimes it's just like, yeah, it's just this other thing that's actually really hard to explain, and they can't immediately figure it out, because
Yeah.
they usually have the universal translator, and that makes everything easy. And then I liked that this was hard. What did you think about the representation of 10C?
No, I loved that it was hard. I loved that. I actually really liked that math was the way that they got to that they could find a common ground.
Yeah.
Um, and it made me remember that is, then they mentioned it in the episode that that's a theory that exists now, that like it's possible that when we meet an alien species, math may be the only kind of common language we can speak. um I did think that obviously they had to um escalate the ability to communicate over the course of the episode, but I do think that we went from the trouble of we can't communicate to, oh my gosh, let's hear an entire paragraphs of very nuanced thinking. Um, that happened a little too quickly for me, but that we didn't get to meet the 10C early enough for that to have taken longer. I just
Yeah.
feel like in the middle of the season there were 2 or 3 episodes we could have done without, so that we could have had a longer season finale, where
Yeah.
we took our time more with this final reveal and the final encounter with the 10C.
No, I agree with you because it should have taken longer, but when you waited until the end of the season, then it couldn't take longer. And it
Yeah.
did add to the sense of urgency. And I mean, I think from, just sort of the storytelling economics of television, you didn't want, it's like, okay, well, they've sent us this message, and in 3 weeks we'll get an answer from them, but I think that it did happen too fast. There's some way that if they had done this a little bit earlier in the season, they could have split the difference. And it'd be like at the beginning of an episode, well, they said this. I don't know how to answer it. And then, yeah, and then Michael was like, oh, I'm really sad, and here's why. And we'll talk about that part later. But, and it was just like, oh, yeah, yeah, we get all of that. I agree. It became too easy for them. And I mean, I guess having this supercomputer in Zora at least helps the logic of it. But I agree. I think that it sort of, it took away from the being in awe of the 10C, that it was
Yeah.
so easy to communicate with them. But it did not derail the episode for me in any way. And I think it was a great choice from a writing standpoint that they were making real progress and things were good. And then Tarka's like, no, 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 I got to blow everything up. And then the 10C is like, all right, mic drop. We're gonna send you back. Let's talk about the episode. The way it starts is something that we've been asking for weeks now, months now, since before it went on its little mini hiatus. Tilly. And
Tilly!
finally, they give us Reno a few weeks ago. We finally got Tilly back. I was starting to think they'd forgotten about her, and it was great to see her. And it seemed like I don't know, it seems like she's doing well in that role. I mean, throughout the course of the episode, you know, being kind of an instructor at the academy. And what did you think when you got to see our pal Tilly at the
Well,
get
I
go of the
was
episode?
just so excited to see her. I didn't care what she was doing. I just was happy
Yeah,
to see her. But I also loved seeing her in this position of being a commander, a captain of her own, kind of in her own way, being captain of these cadets. I thought she did such a great job. Like it was just so interesting to see her go from, like little quirky funny Tilly to, now I am in charge of all these cadets, and I am confident and poised, and I'll even face danger to the end with the admiral. Like, she Tilly just She got my heart, man. I love some Tilly. I love
Oh,
her.
when you knew she was gonna stay behind, let's see, I teared up probably 4 times during this episode, and I did not see that coming. Not the way that the previous 12 had gone. I didn't think
Right.
13 was gonna do that to me. I thought it was gonna be a sense of relief. But, they had some really good moments, and one of them was when the cadets are saying goodbye, like, "Okay, we'll rendezvous with you." I'm like, "Oh, Tilly's not going with you. That's not how our girl Tilly rolls." And I thought, it was definitely I mean, it was completely in character that she would be there to help the admiral, and also I liked their conversation. She's like, I don't really have any regrets, and she even talked about her mother, who we didn't really hear much about until this season, and was like, "Oh, it was a challenge, but I knew she loved me." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So she really does have the kind of peace that allows her to know, like, yeah, this might very well be it for me,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I was glad that we did not see her go, but that if she did go, she was ready for it, I think helps. You know what I mean? That she wasn't terrified of the idea of like, oh my God, there's so many more things for me to do.
You know when I teared up in that conversation when the admiral handed her the whiskey and they had that moment where they were like, "Who gave you this?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, I love that guy. He's such a sweetheart." And that made me tear up. I don't know why, but
Yeah,
I was like,
I thought it was funny.
"Oh."
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know, and, it was nice to see, that, Vance only really regretted that he didn't spend more time with his daughter, but he felt like, he served the galaxy the way that he'd wanted to. It was a really nice moment that may not have been necessary. Had this been a movie, we would not have had that, and
Right.
that's where, as critical as you and I have been throughout the course of this 4th season, what we have praised is great character moments, great character building, and
Absolutely.
getting to see it from characters that we don't always. And we're jumping around a little bit, but when Burnham was looking for a volunteer and Detmer stood up, I'm like, oh no, you sit right back down. You do not stand up and volunteer for that.
I got so afraid in that moment. I was like,
Yeah,
"No, no, 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 no. We can't lose Detmer. We can't lose
yeah,
Detmer. We're just getting to know her. We
I
can't."
know. And yeah, and like Adira just made friends with you. Come on.
Right, right.
So, and I thought that, and even the general, I thought was like, yeah, look, I got us into this mess, and I'm also a pretty good pilot. I can, I'm a good enough pilot that I can hit another ship head on.
I
And
really Oh, sorry, again.
go ahead, no, go ahead, go ahead, it's fine.
No, I was gonna say, I just had this thought. It really speaks to the character work that they did do this season that I got so upset over Detmer possibly going on that suicide mission.
Yeah,
Like, I
no,
felt
because
like
I felt like we're just starting to get to know her.
yeah,
It's almost like if somebody were to like, sign your yearbook at the end of high school, it's like, yeah, I wish we hung out more. And be like, oh, that's
right,
so sad, you know? And it's like, yeah, Detmer, wish we hung out more. Good
right.
luck at college. Good luck at Starfleet Academy. And yeah, no, it really like the idea is like, no, we were just start if it was like season 2, it would be like, all right, I guess somebody had to go.
Right.
It wouldn't have had the impact it did. They definitely did a good job making us care about her. There's still a few characters that if they had gone, I'd be like, too bad for them. But I didn't want it to be Detmer.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think that there was a lot of that, and there were a lot of those moments where you're not really sure where it's going to go. And I mean, in the end, it's happily ever after for everybody except Tarka, which is really the way it should have gone.
You
It's
reap what you sow. That's what that
yeah,
guy deserved.
and and I don't know about you, and we are talking about all the spoilers now. So Jason, if you haven't watched yet, this is the time to duck out. I don't know about you. I was never really convinced that Book was gone for sure because of the amount of power that 10C experienced. But I did have the thought that, well, if he's gone, you also reap what you sow. He went way too far down the road with Tarka. There were times where he could have stopped and he didn't. So, I was like, I like Book. I think he's a great character. I enjoy having him on the show. And yes, thank you, Jason, if you're even still there. Bye, Felicia. So I think that it would have been disappointing to lose him, but it logically he should have died. You know.
Logically, he should have died, but I was so heartbroken for Burnham, even though I knew in my heart he wasn't really gone.
Yeah,
Her reaction, and we have made fun of Sonequa and her crying
we have.
so many
Yep.
times, but this one moment, these tears, I believed them, and I was with her with them, and I was crying, and I thought to myself, he's not dead. They
Yeah.
saved him. Why are
Yeah.
you crying? But she really got me. Like, she really committed to that moment,
She did.
and it was a beautiful moment of tears right there.
And honestly, the only question for me was, is he gonna be back in this episode, or is that gonna be a season 5 thing where it's like, oh yeah, he was caught in a transporter buffer, and the 10C has an important message for you, and the important message is from Book, you know. But yeah, and let's talk a little bit about Tarka. I mean, just sort of the realization, and I guess it seems as though he died on the ship. He was trying to see if he could get his little transporter thing to work. What do you think ultimately happened to Mr. Tarka?
I believe Tarka died.
Yeah,
Um, I don't believe he made it to his home world, or his home with his friend Oros, I think his name is. I
yeah.
don't think he made it. Um, and I wasn't rooting for him to make it. I wasn't. I
No,
I
I
wasn't.
the whole season I have not been rooting for him. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, to me, it was like just desserts. And the humanitarian in me hates to say that about anybody's life, but it's a fictional life, so I can say it.
Yeah, right, exactly. In the course of storytelling, I mean, if he had gotten what he wanted at the expense of everything he had done, and honestly, I think that there could have been a little bit more of a sentence for Book, but having the president say that reasons matter, in her speech about justice, I'm like, all right, so it's not going to be that bad. But
And he got to keep his cat.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I really thought that Burnham was getting stuck with that cat. That's what that's what I felt. Was that was what was going to happen. Um, and there were a lot of ways where this felt like, we know that the show has been renewed for season 5, but it certainly could have been the end of the series, and maybe they, were doing that for a reason, just because they maybe just didn't know. They're like, yeah, maybe Paramount feels like they've got enough episodes of this show. They've got so much other Star Trek in the works. Maybe they just don't want to do more.
It wouldn't be the
So
first time that we thought at the end of a season of Discovery that we thought, all right, this could be done now. This this
yeah,
this
look,
could be
we
this could
talked
be
about it
over.
on our Picard after show. Our pal Frank tapped out after season 2. He knows there's more seasons. He's like, yeah, I was done. I felt
Yeah.
like I didn't need to see them go in the future, and I think he's missed some good things, and anybody who hasn't has, but I think a few people are not still on the Discovery bandwagon. And look, there were points this season where I wondered, I'm like, why am I still doing this? But
Word.
because you would get character moments that made us care about Detmer standing up and volunteering. It's little
Yeah.
stuff like that it I don't know. Even last season, I don't think it would have resounded with me, and really at all. So
Agreed.
yeah. Let's also talk about some of the interpersonal interactions on the ship. Flobo and I talked a little bit last week, and I know you and I had felt like we were gonna lose some members of the crew, and Tarka being the only one to die was a little surprising. I really felt like they were building to something with Dr. Culber. I thought he or possibly Stamets were going to die. I didn't think they would do that to Adira, but I felt like one of them were going to go. And I'm like, Dr. Culver already died. Are they really going to kill him again? You know, like I think it was episode 12, when you say, like, well, don't worry, we're going to take a vacation after this. That's where I'm like, oh no, don't
Right.
do that. I was convinced. I'm like, that they're going to kill one of them, maybe even both of them. our vacation is going to be a vacation in the dirt because we're both dead. And I was like, that's terrible. Why would you even think that? But so I was relieved in that. And I think that we got exactly what we needed from Saru and President, quote, just call me Tarina, unquote.
Oh, that was another moment where I cried
Yep. That
when
got me. I didn't feel that one coming on, but when she said it, I was like, oh, come on, you two crazy kids.
right? And
Yeah.
the handhold really
Yeah.
got
I
me.
I I didn't feel like it was consistent with either character if they had done anything more than, maybe if they had hugged, but a handhold. I didn't want to see them kiss. Not that we couldn't get that in the future. I just didn't think they were there yet.
Agreed.
And just the two of them in the garden together, I'm like, oh, they're just adorable. And
Agreed. And I
yeah, and
love how reserved they're, because they're both so reserved. It makes sense that the whole thing would go really slowly with them, and
yeah.
I love the pace.
Yeah. No, that I mean, we definitely got rewarded by the slow pacing, at least on that aspect of really the storytelling. And we got I think we got exactly what we needed by the end of the season as it relates to Saru and Tarina, not Madam President. I love that moment. So
Yes.
in general, really very happy with this. I liked that the 10C just didn't understand. They're like, it's kind of insulting for them to be like, we didn't realize you were advanced life forms. So oops are bad. And I thought that was a great moment where Book was like, you know what, that's not good enough. You need to really understand what you did and the impact it had. Talk a little bit about the 10C as we see them now in this episode. And yes, we'll just have to deal with the fact that they needed to be able to communicate with them quickly because they set up this ticking clock for Earth. I agree with you 100%. It was a little quick, but dealing with it in the context of them only leaving one episode for themselves. What did you think about sort of this representation of the 10C and sort of the realization they come to really just in this episode? It started a little bit last episode.
I thought they were really interesting. I was fascinated by the fact that whenever we get an alien species that's not humanoid and carbon based and all that stuff, it's really interesting to see how we interact with them, and how we sort of we've had opportunities to see other alien species that took some different form, but where we were mostly able to communicate with them. So this one was really interesting, and I thought the whole thing with the lights and the molecules, like it was fascinating and far fetched, but also really interesting. Like they thought they did a really good job with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's something very 70s of it because, like I said, it's a little bit of like V'ger, but it's also like Close Encounters,
Yeah,
where it's just
yeah.
like sort of interacting in that
Dun,
way.
dun,
And then you
dun,
just think about,
dun,
yeah,
dun.
yeah,
Yeah.
and just sorry that Mr. Spock wasn't there for it because he would have loved that. That this was exactly the kind of mystery that he would have loved to have been able to solve. But yeah, I think that and then even sort of seeing like I don't know, some sort of like massive like squid-like creature or something, but they don't even really dwell on it. It's just sort of like, yeah, it's just something right here and then in the light. I you know, I thought that they handled it really well. And I mean, it had to be different because of, in the course of whatever 60 years, what they've shown us in terms of the different levels. I mean, it's hard to really top when you've seen things before. It's top what you've seen before is what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that we got, I thought that they did, I was wondering after episode 12, I'm like, are they going to be able to stick the landing? Are they going to be able to make this work? Is it all going to come together? And it did. And I think, again, logically, it doesn't make sense that Book lived, but from an emotional standpoint, from a character standpoint, they didn't want to get rid of him. And logically, the 10C is like, oh yeah, we just figured that was something important, and we just kind of we put it on. I mean, look, if Scotty can be stuck at a transporter signature for 75 years, Book can be there for like an hour. It's fine. It's okay. And
Yeah.
the amount of power that the 10C has, their abilities, it wasn't far fetched for Star Trek. Let's put it
No.
that way.
No.
Uh, you know, you put that moment in a Die Hard movie, I might have some words with you. But if you're going to do it in Star Trek, it's going to be okay. Um, and yeah, I mean, so it leaves the door open for us to see him again. We don't get anything from Gray in this episode, so maybe we'll just assume that Adira sent some messages, and we're like, yeah, I might never be able to talk to you again because yeah, I could die. But good
Right.
luck on your journey. I'm making new friends. I thought that was a nice moment with Adira and Tilly. I was glad they took the time for that. Like, look at you actually talking to people and making friends. So,
Yeah.
and there were a couple of shots of
Especially
go ahead,
good.
everybody
Especially
jumping up
since
and down together, like the whole like crew with
yeah,
Tilly.
that
I
was
thought that
really
was nice.
cute.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it
Anyway.
made me feel like I was part of the team.
Yeah.
And I loved Tilly talking to Adira because Tilly had been Adira at some other point. And so
Yeah.
it just seems like a beautiful sort of full circle moment for them to sort of have that little moment together. Um I also loved the moment where Colbert, Stamets, and Adira met in engineering, and they were like, "Why didn't you go down with the mission?" And he was like, "I want to be with my family." Like that was
Yeah.
another tearjerker for me. Um,
It was a very nice moment. I agree. I mean, they have been referred to as a family. They've thought of themselves that way, but that really shows it right there. It's like, yeah, I'm going to stay here. I thought that. Yeah, I agree with you. That was very, very nicely done. So, in general, happy with this. I mean, the your point about the length of communicating with the 10C, again, we'll just have to deal with the fact that they wasted our time earlier in the season. they they didn't leave themselves enough time. It's like, oh, I'll just stay up the night before the test and do all my studying then. I don't need to start studying. I don't need to work on this research paper until the night before it's due. So they only left themselves a little time. And, but in general, I thought it was really happy. And, Earth quickly comes back to the Federation, I mean, and
oh my
it
god.
really, what did you think of that?
Oh my god. I screamed when the president of Earth comes through the doors. I screamed, pressed pause, jumped up and down, shouted at the television, "Oh no, you didn't!" And just had a whole little jubilee over here. Over, I mean, can we say it? I know. I hope Jason's gone.
He's got, I
Over,
mean, if he's not, that's on him.
but Stacey Abrams as the president of Earth. Yes,
Yeah.
please. Thank you, please. I was
Yeah.
there for it. I loved it. She did a great job.
Yeah.
It was so good. It was like such a great it made all of the moments I was bored this season. It just erased all of that from my mind. I was like, this is the payoff. It was worth it to get to this moment.
And I mean, I guess, it's not like top level spoiler, but the fact that, you don't know anything about it, even like, oh yeah, she filmed something for the show, or she went to visit the set, you know what I mean? So there was nothing. So,
Nothing.
because if that was in your head at all, it'd be like, oh, that's cool, but that explains that thing that I already knew. So to have
Right.
an actual surprise, I was wondering if they were gonna figure out a way where Burnham's mother was also the president before we saw her. I mean, because I'm like, yeah, they're not showing the president to us, you know, uh, and but yeah, I thought that was a nice reveal, and then just the like nothing to negotiate. We're back in Team Federation. Let's go. And it definitely is another time where they're resetting the series, and it's like, okay, so
Yeah.
that is not what season 5 is going to be about. You know, I think it's really going to be seeking out new life forms and new civilizations. It's not going to be, building the Federation back together, which, as Burnham in her like her monologue, but I guess her captain's log, just sort of explaining like when they came to the future, just the state of the Federation, the state of really everything.
Hmm.
And they've done a tremendous job in just sometimes being from 900 years in the past, you can solve all the problems of the world.
Sometimes that's all you need is a 900-year
Yeah.
old solution.
Well, before we look ahead towards what we might want for season 5, is there anything that I've missed? I know that we got to see Grudge, and I think that was important. And yeah, Book gets to take Grudge away. I think we've touched on all of the key interactions, all the scenes of some of our friends, and the fact that Stamets and Culber are actually going to get to take that vacation, and neither of them died. That's nice to see because Culber has needed that vacation. And I don't know, they haven't done any short treks in a while, but let's see their vacations before season 5. Let's see what
I
they
would
did. Yeah, I
love
don't want a whole
that.
show about it, but give us a couple of minutes of maybe everybody's vacation.
And that would be a great way to sort of give us more of these characters so
Yeah.
that next season we can jump into, oh, these are the characters, and now they're off to explore new
Yeah.
worlds and new
Well, ne-
civilizations or whatever they're going
next
to do.
next season when they encounter species 11D. So that's really what we're going to have to worry about now. And the whole thing is going to build towards species 11D. Uh
But it does beg the question, like, what do they think? What do we think they're going to do next?
yeah.
Because this was so neatly tied up that there's no outstanding conflict, or there's no outstanding problem to solve. So I don't know. I mean, they can do anything, but I also hope they don't do anything stupid or crazy, like go back to the 21st century, to the year 20. What year is Picard going back to?
2024.
Yeah, I hope they don't do
Yeah.
anything like that.
Yeah.
I did have a moment where, when they realized that they were going to be using the spore drive, and
Yeah.
they were going to destroy the spore drive, and then it would take them decades to get back to Federation space. I did have a moment where I thought, please don't recreate Voyager.
Yeah. Please
Um,
don't.
Although I loved Voyager, but like,
No,
please
I
don't
know.
give us another
But
show like that.
we've already had that story where they're so far away,
Yeah.
and yeah, that was another one of those where I'm like, I'm pretty sure they'll figure out a way around that. It'll be interesting that they don't have the spore drive, but it was the unique thing about that ship and sort of about this show was the ability with which they could travel so quickly and so far and all of that. So I guess we'll just have to see what they do with that. It'll just be a regular warp capable ship. But yeah, that was one of the things that we certainly should have touched on. I'm glad you brought it up. Was the fact that they don't have the spore drive anymore, and then I don't know. Then Stamets is what less important. He can just go back to engineering. He doesn't have to be dealing with the mycelial network and all of that.
Now, I
So
actually really hope that they don't come back at the beginning of season 5 with it repaired. I
yeah,
hope they don't come back and they're like, "Oh, we've repaired the spore drive and we're up and ready." I hope that we get to see what is Discovery like without the spore drive, and what what can they experience, what can they explore without it, while we're waiting for it to get fixed. I mean, I don't know. Part of me, maybe it would be good to have it fixed when we come back, but like, I don't know. I feel like there's some opportunity there to sort of explore more of the characters, explore more of the how everybody worked together if we're watching it get fixed, if we're a part of that
yeah.
process.
I'm okay with it getting fixed at some point, but yeah, I would like them to at least start off the season without it and see how they function without that being the quick fix to so
Yeah.
many of the problems. So, yeah, I mean, I would like to, see some different species, but also, I mean, there's still a lot to catch up on. There are, check in on some of these other worlds. So I mean, really, they can do anything, and sort of like, especially from season 3 onward, they've been able to do whatever they want with this show. They can tell any kind of story they want. They have an enormous canvas. Once they went into the future, you can reference back to stuff that happened before what is the present day, but it's not going to impact. I mean, yes, they reference Picard, what happens in the series and things like that, but it doesn't impact the other shows because it's so far ahead. Part of
Right.
it being a prequel was, if you make all these changes, then you have to explain away why they're not implemented.
Right.
Uh, like having Jim Kirk possibly serve under Captain Pike, but you think he would have mentioned that in the menagerie if he had served under Pike at some point
Yeah.
when
Maybe it'll
Spock
be more of
kidnaps
a
the ship.
maybe it'll be more of a, Pike meets him somewhere, like meets maybe it'll be more like a meeting and not necessarily a working together.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he's serving on another ship and there's a reason why they cross paths with him, I think that's fine. You know, because it would stand a reason that they could cross paths, and that maybe the first time that he meets Mr. Spock isn't when he takes over as captain of the Enterprise. But really, they can literally do anything they want with this show, and I don't know how I feel like we're a ways away from getting a season 5, and that's all right. I'm still a little exhausted from season 4. Very happy
Yeah.
with the finale,
Yeah.
but I'm ready for a break, Discovery.
I agree.
Let's let's see other people. Let's see other Star Treks for a little while. Let's let's see Captain Pike. Let's see Admiral Picard. And
Yeah.
maybe I'll even catch up on Prodigy or Lower Decks, but also maybe not either of those things.
And maybe I'll watch the season finale of Enterprise.
Watch the series finale of Enterprise, and I'll know you've seen it because I will get a text from you that probably is WTF oriented. That's where it starts.
All
You're like,
right.
what did they do? Yeah, oh yeah, you'll see. Don't worry. And you'll know in the first couple minutes. I'm like, oh boy. So yeah, look, I'm excited to know that there's another season of the show. This was definitely my least favorite season of the show. It did end strong. Season 2, I think, is still my favorite. I felt like that had everything that we needed, and I loved the advent of Pike and and Spock and
Yeah.
the other and number 1, but mostly Pike and Spock. But I thought last season was also still interesting, and I don't know how many more. I feel like next season will probably be the last one. I don't think anything really goes more than 5 seasons, except for CW, DC superhero shows. Those all go a
Or
minimum. Yeah, those go
or
a
Law
minimum
and
of like
Order.
12 seasons. Law and Order that comes back for season 22. Supernatural, which did like 30 seasons or whatever. Yeah. But in general, I feel like Paramount Plus is going to be like, how many episodes could we possibly have of this show where it'll make a difference when we
Yeah.
have other Star Treks? So I hope that if it is its last season, that they do some big things and they finish big, But if our pal Craig was here, we could see what he thought of this season, but also where he hopes that it goes. But is there one thing in particular that you would like to see more of in season 5 of Discovery, Nikki?
I would like to see in season 5 of Discovery, I would like to see a more cohesive storyline about the crew. I would like to see uh the next season be about how this crew works together, so that we get more of that Star Trek, my crew is my family feeling. And that I think that's what I would like to see more of. Like the character work they started this season, I'd like them to dive deep on that for next season, and really give us the family, the Discovery family that we've wanted all this time, by showing us more about these characters and giving us more about these relationships. And because there's no big bad on the scene right now, they can find ways to do that without it having to be like, it doesn't. I know that when we're doing only 12 or 13 episodes, they feel like they have to have one big bad and one big giant story arc for the entire season. But I wouldn't mind a little bit more old school, take it episode by episode kind of scenario.
Yeah, like the heyday of Next Generation, like seasons, 3 to 5. You get some overarching themes. You get some two parters, but for the most part, your favorite episodes of most of your Star Trek shows are standalones, not part of a bigger. It's all part of a big story, but it's not part of an ongoing. And maybe that's because that's the streaming model, even when it is released weekly. But I agree with you. I would love some more standalone episodes. And they even did that earlier in this show. I mean, they would take a break from Takuma, things like that. And it's a little shout out for Flobo because I know that was always his favorite. But yeah, so yeah, I hope that it feels more like a Star Trek show of the past, but they're so far in the future they can do anything they want with it. And by the time it is ready for us, and by the time it comes back, I'll be ready for Star Trek
I
Discovery.
I agree. I feel like this. I was ready for this to be done.
Yep.
It ended well, and I will enjoy the break and look forward to when it comes back. Um, but take a year, enjoy yourselves,
Yeah,
work on it.
I feel like it'll be at least a year before it comes back. And if it hadn't ended well, I would have this would be a very different conversation. I'd be like,
Yeah,
does it really need to come back? Like, did you have to renew it? But I'm glad that we'll get at least one more voyage with all of them. And I think that that really kind of leaves us at the end, and I'm sure I will pronounce it as well as Burnham did, but we can leave our audience with a Kwakoni Yokwan, which I thought was a lovely sentiment that may we have separated
a hundred
hundreds of times,
times.
yeah, 100 times before. May we separate again so that we may separate 100 more times.
Yes.
And I hope that that doesn't mean we're doing 100 more Star Trek Discovery after shows. But 100 more Star Trek shows of some kind. I'm happy to do that, including shameless self promotion. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, when we will talk about Star Trek Picard Episode 3, which I have not watched yet because I had to watch
Nor have
this
I.
for this show. So, I thought that this was the week where I would watch Picard second, mostly because it was the finale, but also because I knew we were going to do this on Thursday. But now I'm not going to have to make that choice anymore. I'm all in with Jean-Luc, and we will be able to talk about that next Friday, not the Friday after. I've got a busy week at Disneyland and then a wedding in Long Beach,
Woohoo!
so we'll figure that all out. But look for us and Frank tomorrow at 7 Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. So it really is not goodbye. We're just going to see you tomorrow night. So just talking about a different show. But until then, Nikki, how do people keep in touch with you?
You can find me at nikkibaileycomedy.com or on all the social medias at nikkibailey_.
And you can always find me at Christian DMZ. And please subscribe to the Blackcast YouTube channel. You will get this show. You will get any other Star Trek after shows we do. You'll get our show Marvel Movie Talk. You will get Biden Time. And of course, the titular Blattcast, BLADTCAST. Go ahead and give the thumbs up. And as they say on YouTube, smash that like button, y'all. That's at least what I think they say. I don't know. Somebody must say that. And we'll see you tomorrow night. But for the last time for a while, we'll say let's fly because Flobo loves that. Let's fly. And if you want more Star Trek talk, I'm going to give a plug for Flobo. You want more
Yeah.
Star Trek Discovery talk? Find Flobo's show Commander's Log, which will be actually in just a little bit over 2 hours over on his YouTube channel, Commander's Log. They are not covering Picard. So you will only be able to get his Discovery talk. And then I think they're going to do Brave New World as well, or Strange New World as well. But until tomorrow night, live long and prosper. And of course, because it is St. Patrick's Day, you can do the Shamrock Shake from McDonald's if you're so inclined. And yes, I bought a t-shirt.